The business of making and marketing candy can at times get more bitter than sweet. But this firm managed to grow its brands, making big names out of Chupa Chups, Mentos, and Frutella in the country. Let's speak now with Perfetti Van Melle, Philippines General Manager, David Roos. David, great to have you with us on The Final Word. 40 years of doing business in the Philippines with all of these brand names making a mark for Filipino consumers. How important is the Philippine market for Perfetti Van Melle?
Well, good evening, Rico. Thanks for having us. Philippines is an important market for the Philippines. You said 40 years ago we started business. Mm-hmm. The Philippines was actually the first market in Asia where Perfetti started its operations, way before, for example, Indonesia, Vietnam, and China. So it's kind of a trailblazer country for us.
It has a big history here in the Philippines and in ASEAN.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The other thing is that Asia as a region of which the Philippines is part accounts for about 40% of the total global revenues. Mm-hmm. Mentos as a brand is part of the top 5 countries here in the Philippines. The Philippines is really a key market for the company worldwide when it comes to Mentos.
But of course, we went through a major bump on the road over the past 2.5 years because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Were your products' sales affected?
During the pandemic, absolutely, absolutely. The category contracted by sort of 30-35%. Mm-hmm. Candy products are impulse products. So a lot of the impulse channels like the CVS, ISI store sort of lost clientele. So fair to say we've had 2 very hard years throughout 2020 and 2021.
But have you been able to bounce back in 2022 compared to 2021?
Thankfully, we've rebounded, I would say, with a vengeance. 2022 has been a great year for us. We've surpassed, in fact, pre-pandemic levels when it comes to sales. We've recorded our best year ever in 2022. We've grown across all our categories, so the lollipops, the jellies, the Mentos, in all our key channels. And we've grown market share. So it's really been a great year for us. And part of that comes from market factors like, of course, the reopening of the economy, people going back to work, opening of classes again. The thing I didn't know is that the elections kind of boosted our business in the first quarter.
Demand.
And people like to hand out candies during the big rallies and the campaign. So that somehow was a bit of a bonus in the first quarter of the year. Yeah, no, it's been a great year for us.
But of course, in the first and second quarters of 2022, everyone was impacted by surging prices due to the Ukraine war. I mean, we saw currencies being devalued against the US dollar, double-digit inflation. Has this in any way affected your sales or eaten up into your market share?
Well, I'm happy that it didn't. So obviously we have not been as a category immune to the inflation. But I think it's important to keep in mind what I said earlier, that we come from 2 very dark years. So I think people sort of rediscovered the candy category, and it's been basically growing despite, I would say, that price inflation.
Despite the challenges, we're able to overcome those hurdles.
Yes, in
especially during the dark years of COVID-19.
That's right, and you see that even throughout the year when some other categories started to sort of flatten, the confectionery category has continued its growth. So resilient throughout 2022.
Of course, we've seen revenge purchases, revenge travel. Everything was revenge in 2022, David. But did you in any way tweak your prices to remain competitive in the Philippine market and against your competitors? Or you kept them where they're at?
We did not keep them exactly where they were at. Just to give you an example, but some of our raw material prices, as you mentioned, skyrocketed. For example, sugar, starch went up anywhere between 25-35%. So obviously we look at other ways to compensate for that, but we had to increase at some point last year our prices. Across the category, you see that prices were increased by sort of 5 to 15% on core SKUs. For us, it's been really on the lower end of that spectrum.
Despite rising prices, increasing your price points, what has been your bestseller over the past year?
No surprise there. I think it's really
hands down. It is.
It's Mentos.
Oh, it's Mentos. Yeah.
Yeah, the legacy of the fresh maker, I think, is something that we are always dealing with here. So we have a lot of other Mentos varieties and a lot of other products, but Mentos Mint is really our flagship product. Yeah, it's really hands down the number one, and still is.
And what about Chupa Chups and Frutella?
Chupa Chups is very strong, but in certain channels. So you see Chupa Chups being one of our best sellers in, for example, the convenience stores. Frutella is a bit more of a legacy brand with sort of a loyal following. So it's not very big, but it has a very big reputation. Yeah.
We've seen a boost in the digital platform during the pandemic. Did this help in any way Perfetti van Melle during those dark days?
We saw a rise in our e-commerce business, and I think in two areas. First, what we call direct-to-consumer e-commerce business, so the pure players like Shopee or Lazada. That business grew particularly during the pandemic, but it's still a fairly small part of our business. We're talking less than 5%. The part that's grown exponentially really is the B2B e-commerce business. So this is either platforms or apps like grocery or great deals that sell in fact to sari stores, and that's a channel that's really growing at the moment.
And manufacturing has always been a problem here in the Philippines. We can't seem to take off because I was talking to President Marcos earlier. Number one is the ease of doing business, and number two is power rates, still one of the most expensive in the region. Perfetti van Melle had a manufacturing facility decades ago.
Yes.
Are you still trying to come back and manufacture these popular brands in the country and create more jobs?
Yeah, I mean, capacity planning is a global topic for us. It's managed also by the people in Amsterdam, so we have to ask them, to be honest. I think the best we can do is keep growing, and I think if we grow if we grow last year, I think the board will support us in whatever way possible. So I think the best we can do is keep growing the business, and we're still young.
Okay, briefly, what are your targets for 2023? What is your outlook?
We expect that growth will continue for us. Obviously, not as high as it was last year, because we're kind of at in a normalized economy. We do see, particularly in the first 2 quarters, growth continue, and then we hope to build on that momentum. So we're still looking forward to a strong year in 2023.
Happy 40th anniversary.
Life starts at 40.
Life starts at 40. David Roos, General Manager, Perfetti van Melle, makers of Mentos, Frutella, and Chupa Chups. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
on The Final Word.